The communication room of the Galactic Council station buzzed with activity. Ambassador HFY stared at the strange signal appearing on his screens. For 300 years, the Council had watched the third planet of a small yellow star. They called it the Death World. The planet terrified them. It spun through space with violent weather, deadly creatures, and an environment that killed most life forms within hours. Yet somehow one species had not only survived but thrived. They called themselves humans. The Council had seen these humans do impossible things. They jumped from flying machines for fun. They kept deadly predators as pets. They lived in places where the very air could kill most galactic species. The Council decided to watch from far away and never make contact. Now, for the first time, the humans were calling for help. "Play the message again," HFY told his assistant. The voice crackled through the speakers. It was rough and filled with pain. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the human colony ship New Horizon. We are under attack by unknown vessels. They have boarded our ship. We have women and children aboard. Please, if anyone receives this message, we need help. We are located at coordinates." Static filled the air. HFY felt his heart sink. He knew those coordinates. The Void Hunters had found the human ship. The Void Hunters were a nightmare that had haunted the galaxy for 1,000 years. They traveled in dark ships, landing on worlds and ships to consume everything living. They took people and turned them into more Void Hunters. Entire civilizations had vanished when the Hunters found them. 3 major galactic powers had tried to stop them. All had failed. Billions had died. Now the Council's policy was simple: hide, hope, and pray the Hunters passed by. HFY rushed to the Council chambers. The great room held representatives from dozens of worlds. At the center sat High Counselor Vashati, her blue skin pale with worry. "Honored Counselor," HFY began, "we have received a distress call from the human Deathworld species." The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Counselor Thexmar of the Trading Guild stood up. "Impossible. Deathworlders do not have communication technology." "They do," HFY replied, "and they are under attack by Void Hunters." The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The humans would die just like so many others. "What is their location?" asked Vashati. HFY gave the coordinates. Several counselors checked their data tablets and shook their heads sadly. "That sector is lost," declared Admiral Colrin of the Defense Fleet. "We cannot send ships there. The Void Hunters would detect us and follow our trail back here. But we must do something," HFY insisted. "These are innocent people." "Deathworlders are not people," Thexmar said coldly. "They are predators. Perhaps it is better this way." HFY stared at him in shock. "How can you say that?" "They called for help. They have children on that ship." High Counselor Vashiti raised her hand for silence. "The Council has spoken on this matter before. We do not interfere with developing species, and we certainly do not risk our own people for Deathworlders." "Then what do we tell them?" HFY asked. "We tell them the truth," Vashati replied. "Their sacrifice will be remembered." The vote was quick. Only HFY voted to help. The message was sent on the same frequency the humans had used. It was formal and cold. "To the vessel New Horizon, the Galactic Council acknowledges your distress call. We cannot provide assistance at this time. Your sacrifice will be remembered. End transmission." What the Council did not know was that aboard the New Horizon, a young woman named Sarah Chen had been listening to galactic communications for months. She was smart and curious, always trying to learn new things. She had broken the galactic communication codes weeks ago. Sarah read the Council's message with growing anger. She immediately sent it to Earth along with her own message. "They are leaving us to die." On Earth, the message reached the Earth Defense Force headquarters in Geneva. Admiral Marcus Kane was in a meeting about new ship designs when his aide rushed in. "Sir, priority message from the New Horizon colony ship." Kane read the message twice. His face grew hard as stone. Around the room, other officers read over his shoulder. The silence was thick with anger. Kane had served in the military for 30 years. He had fought in the water wars, the Arctic conflict, and the Space Pirates campaign. He had never left a soldier behind. He would not start now. "How many ships do we have ready for deep space?" he asked. "Sir, if we mobilize everything, about 3,000 vessels," Kane nodded. "Do it. Every ship that can fly. Every captain who can fight. And send a message to the colonies. Tell them Earth calls for aid. Sir, that will leave our home system defenseless." Kane looked at him with cold eyes. "No. That will show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humans. Within hours, ships began moving throughout the solar system. The massive dreadnought Retribution powered up its engines. Hundreds of destroyers, cruisers, and fighters joined the formation. From Mars, the Second Fleet launched. From the asteroid bases, mining ships fitted with weapons added to the growing armada. The sight was magnificent and terrible. Ship after ship emerged from hidden bases, orbital stations, and planetary docks. These were not exploration vessels or trade ships. These were weapons of war, built by a species that had spent thousands of years learning how to kill efficiently. On the galactic sensors, the movement looked impossible. The Council had estimated that Earth might have 50 ships at most. Instead, they watched over 3,000 vessels form into battle groups and begin moving toward the edge of human space. "What are they doing?" whispered Counselor Thexmar as he stared at the sensor readings. "They are going to save their people," Zexhai replied quietly. In the depths of space, the human fleet accelerated to speeds that should have torn apart their primitive ships. But human engineering was different. It was built tough, designed to work in the deadly environment of their home world. Their ships could handle forces that would destroy most galactic vessels. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the stars stream past. His fleet was spread across light years, but every ship stayed in perfect formation. This was not luck. This was the result of a species that had learned to work together or die. "Time to target?" he asked. 14 hours, sir." Kane nodded. Somewhere ahead, humans were fighting for their lives against an enemy that had destroyed civilizations. The galaxy had written them off as already dead. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about humans. They did not abandon their own. Ever. Behind them, the Galactic Council watched in growing fear as the most dangerous species they had ever encountered prepared for war. "Perhaps," Zexhai said quietly. "We should have helped, but it was too late for regrets. The Deathworlders were coming, and nothing in the galaxy would stop them from reaching their people." Commander Jake Morrison pressed his back against the corridor wall and listened. Footsteps echoed in the darkness ahead. Not human footsteps. The Void Hunters moved differently, with a strange clicking sound that made his skin crawl. It had been 3 days since they boarded the New Horizon. 3 days of running, hiding, and fighting for every breath. Morrison had 200 people left alive, mostly civilians who had never held a weapon before this nightmare began. The colony ship was supposed to be humanity's first step into the wider galaxy. 5,000 colonists, scientists, and their families heading to a new world. Now most of them were dead or worse. The Void Hunters did not just kill. They changed people, turned them into more hunters. Morrison touched his radio. "Sarah, report." "Still monitoring galactic channels," came the whispered reply. "Something big is happening. I'm seeing massive movement in our home system." "Good news? Maybe a lot of ships are moving our way. More than I thought we had." Morrison allowed himself a small smile. Earth had not forgotten them. He just hoped help would arrive before the hunters broke through their last defenses. The civilian shelter was 3 decks below, protected by blast doors and armed volunteers. Morrison's job was to keep the hunters away from those doors. So far, he was succeeding, but barely. He moved carefully down the corridor, checking each corner. The ship's lights flickered on and off. Half the systems were damaged or offline, but Morrison knew these corridors better than the hunters did. This was his ship, his people, his responsibility. A shadow moved ahead. Morrison raised his rifle and fired. The energy bolt lit up the darkness and struck something that screamed in a voice no human throat could make. The hunter fell, but Morrison knew more would come. They always came. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Admiral Kane's fleet raced through space at speeds that amazed galactic observers. The human ships moved in tight formations, their engines burning bright against the darkness. Captain Diana Reeves commanded the advanced scouts aboard the stealth frigate Ghost Protocol. Her job was to reach the colony ship first and assess the situation. Her ships were smaller and faster than the main fleet, designed to move unseen through space. "Captain, we have the target on sensors," reported her navigator. Reeves studied the tactical display. The New Horizon hung in space like a wounded bird. Around it, 20 Void Hunter ships formed a tight circle. The human vessel showed signs of heavy damage, but it was still intact. Any life signs? Difficult to tell at this range. The Hunter ships are jamming most frequencies. Reeves nodded. "Take us closer. Use the asteroid field for cover." The Ghost Protocol slipped between huge rocks, moving like a predator stalking prey. Human pilots were trained differently than galactic crews. They learned to use gravity, obstacles, and blind spots. Space was not empty to them. It was a hunting ground. As they moved closer, Reeves could see the battle damage on the new horizon. Holes in the hull, broken weapon systems, emergency lights flashing. But the ship was still fighting. Energy bolts flickered between the colony ship and the hunters. "Tough bastards," muttered her weapons officer. "They're human," Reeves replied simply. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Kane. "Retribution, this is Ghost Protocol. Target is still active. Repeat, our people are still fighting." Kane's voice came back immediately. "Understood. How long can they hold?" "Unknown, sir. But knowing humans, they'll hold until we get there or they're all dead." "Copy that. ETA 4 hours. Keep them alive, Captain." Reeves smiled grimly. "Roger that, Admiral." Back on the new horizon, Morrison led another group of survivors through the maintenance tunnels. These passages were too small for the hunters' bulky forms, giving humans an advantage. They could move through their own ship like ghosts. "Set the charges here," Morrison told his demolition expert, a former mining engineer named Lopez. "That'll take out the entire section, Commander." "Good, let them have it. We'll make them pay for every meter." This was human warfare, not the clean, distant battles fought by galactic civilizations. This was dirty, desperate, and personal. Every corridor became a trap. Every room became a fortress. The hunters had superior weapons and numbers, but they had never fought a species that turned their own homes into weapons. The charges exploded with a roar that shook the ship. Emergency alarms wailed as atmosphere vented into space. An entire section of the ship was now cut off, trapping dozens of hunters on the wrong side. Morrison's radio crackled. "Commander, this is Captain Chen in the civilian section. The children are asking when the cavalry is coming." Morrison looked out a damaged porthole at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth's fleet was racing to save them. He just had to buy them time. "Tell them the cavalry is always coming. Humans don't leave humans behind." As if summoned by his words, the space around the new horizon suddenly lit up with weapons fire. The Ghost Protocol and her sister ships had begun their attack, striking at the hunter vessels from the cover of the asteroid field. The Void Hunters, expecting an easy meal, found themselves under attack by an enemy that fought like the darkness itself. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, fired devastating volleys, and vanished again before the hunters could respond. Captain Reeves watched her tactical display with satisfaction. This was how humans had learned to fight on their deadly world. Never give the enemy a fair fight. Use every advantage. Strike hard and fade away. Target their sensor arrays, she ordered. Blind them. Her ships moved through the asteroid field like sharks through a reef. The hunters tried to follow, but their massive vessels were too clumsy for this kind of warfare. They crashed into asteroids or lost sight of their targets in the maze of rocks. On the new horizon, Morrison felt the ship shake as explosions erupted outside. He reached for his radio. "Sarah, what's happening out there?" "Human ships, Commander. I count 12 stealth frigates engaging the hunters." Morrison felt hope surge in his chest. Earth had come. His people had come, but the battle was far from over. The Void Hunters were regrouping, calling for reinforcements, and somewhere in the darkness of space, more hunter ships were approaching. Morrison checked his weapon and headed back toward the front lines. His people were out there fighting in the darkness between the stars. The least he could do was hold the line until they arrived. The hunters would learn today that humans did not die quietly. They fought. They survived, and they never ever gave up on their own. In the depths of space, Admiral Kane's massive fleet continued its approach. 3,000 ships carrying the combined fury of humanity raced toward a battle that would change the galaxy forever. The Deathworlders were coming home. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Retribution as his fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Before them hung the battlefield where humanity's fate would be decided. The new horizon drifted in space, scarred and bleeding atmosphere, but still intact. Around it, Void Hunter ships moved like hungry sharks. "Tactical report," Kane ordered. 27 hunter vessels, sir. Our scouts have been keeping them busy, but they're taking heavy damage." Kane studied the display. His fleet stretched across space in a formation no galactic military had ever seen. Instead of the standard line formation used by civilized species, the humans had arranged themselves in a three-dimensional sphere that could contract or expand as needed. "Signal the fleet." "Attack pattern Omega. No prisoners, no quarter. The human fleet fell on the Void Hunters like a pack of wolves. They did not announce themselves or demand surrender. They simply began killing. Lieutenant Sarah Chen watched from the New Horizons communication station as the space around her ship erupted in fire. Human vessels moved with impossible speed and coordination, their pilots pulling maneuvers that should have killed them from the acceleration alone. But humans were different. They had evolved on a world with strong gravity, where split-second reactions meant the difference between life and death. What would crush most galactic species was just another day for a human pilot. Fighter craft swarmed through the Hunter formation like angry hornets. They moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually calculated chaos. The Hunters, used to fighting predictable enemies, found themselves unable to track targets that moved like natural predators. "My God," whispered Chen as she watched a human destroyer ram straight through a Hunter cruiser, both ships exploding in a ball of fire. "They're not just fighting. They're going berserker." On the bridge of the Retribution, Kane watched his people die with cold calculation. Every loss hurt, but he had learned long ago that victory required sacrifice. The humans were trading ships and lives for tactical advantage, something that horrified most galactic species. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Galactic Council fleet." Kane's jaw tightened. "Put them through." The holographic image of Admiral Taylor appeared before him. The alien's features showed shock and fear. "Human Commander, I am Admiral Taylor of the Galactic Council Defense Force. You must cease this attack immediately and submit to first contact protocols." Kane's voice was ice cold. "Admiral, you had your chance to help. Now watch what happens when you abandon allies to die. You are violating dozens of galactic laws. Stand down immediately or face the consequences." Kane smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "What consequences? Are you going to call for help? Because that worked out so well for us." The Council fleet moved to intercept, trying to place themselves between the humans and the Void Hunters. It was a mistake they would regret. "Signal the Council ships," Kane ordered. "If they do not move in 60 seconds, target their shield generators." "Sir, that's an act of war against the galactic government." Kane turned to face his weapons officer. "Son, we've been at war since the moment they left our people to die. They just didn't know it yet." The countdown reached 0. The Council ships remained in position, their commanders believing that the primitive humans would not dare fire on them. They were wrong. Precise energy beams lanced out from the human fleet, striking the Council ships' shield generators with surgical accuracy. The alien vessels found themselves defenseless in seconds, their shields flickering and dying. "This is your only warning," Kane broadcasted on all frequencies. "Move, or join them." The Council fleet scattered like frightened birds. Meanwhile, on the New Horizon, Commander Morrison was leading a counterattack through the ship's corridors. The external battle had drawn away many of the Hunters, giving his people a chance to fight back. "Push forward. Reclaim Deck 7, Morrison shouted as his improvised soldiers advanced. These were not trained warriors. They were scientists, farmers, teachers, and families who had simply refused to die quietly. They fought with mining tools, kitchen knives, and improvised weapons. But they fought with the desperate fury of a species that had survived by never giving up. The Hunters retreated before this unexpected assault. They had faced civilized species before, enemies who fought with honor and restraint. Humans fought like the predators they were, using every dirty trick and desperate tactic their world had taught them. In space, the battle was turning. The Void Hunters found themselves trapped between the human fleet and the deadly asteroid field. Every time they tried to escape, human ships appeared from the rocks to block their path. Captain Diana Reeves piloted her damaged frigate through the chaos, hunting the Hunter command ship. Her vessel was streaming atmosphere, and half her weapons were offline, but she pressed on. "This was personal now. There," called her navigator. "The big one in the center. That's got to be their flagship." Reeves smiled grimly. "All power to engines. We're going to ram them. Captain, that's suicide." "No," Reeves replied calmly. "That's human." The Ghost Protocol accelerated toward the Hunter flagship like a missile. At the last second, Reeves and her crew transported to escape pods, leaving their ship to complete its final mission. The frigate struck the alien vessel at incredible speed, both ships vanishing in a brilliant explosion. The death of their flagship broke the Hunter formation. The surviving alien ships tried to retreat, but Kane had prepared for this. His fleet contracted like a closing fist, trapping the hunters in a sphere of human ships. No survivors, Kane ordered. End this. The final phase of the battle was not a fight but an execution. The human ships systematically destroyed every hunter vessel, ensuring that none would escape to threaten other worlds. As the last hunter ship died in fire, an eerie silence fell over the battlefield. Space was filled with debris and the dead, but the humans had won. The New Horizon was free. Kane opened a channel to the colony ship. New Horizon, this is Admiral Kane. Prepare for rescue operations. Morrison's voice came back, hoarse but strong. Admiral, we have wounded and dead, but we're still here. All thanks to you. No, Commander. Thanks to you. You held the line until we could get here. In the distance, the Galactic Council fleet watched in stunned silence. They had witnessed something that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare, about civilization, and about the species they had dismissed as primitive. Admiral Taylor sent a message to the human fleet. Admiral Kane, the Council requests a formal meeting to discuss these events. Kane's reply was broadcast to the entire galaxy. You want to talk? Fine. But we do it my way, on my ship, surrounded by the wreckage of the enemies you were too afraid to fight. The message was clear to everyone listening. The humans were not asking for permission to join galactic civilization. They were announcing that the rules had changed. The Deathworlders had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. Colonel Maria Santos stepped through the airlock onto the New Horizon, her combat armor still smoking from the battle outside. Behind her came a squad of Earth's finest Marines, their faces hidden behind tactical visors. They moved like predators entering a hunting ground. The corridor was a nightmare of twisted metal and alien technology. Void Hunter biomechanical implants covered the walls like a cancer. The air tasted of death and something else, something that made human instinct scream warnings about poison and disease. Sweep and clear, by the numbers, Santos ordered her team. Any hunter still breathing doesn't stay that way. Commander Morrison met them at the first checkpoint, his face gaunt with exhaustion. Colonel, thank God you're here. We've got civilians trapped in sections 4 and 7. The hunters have some kind of hive set up in the main cargo bay. Santos nodded grimly. How many people? 63 in section 4, maybe 20 in section 7. But the hunters, they've been changing people. Some of our own are hunting us now. This was the horror of the Void Hunters. They did not simply kill. They infected, converted, transformed. Good people became nightmares that wore familiar faces. We'll handle it, Santos said simply. Get your people to safety. This is what we do. What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. The human Marines did not simply fight the hunters. They hunted them with systematic efficiency that terrified galactic observers. The Marines split into small teams, each moving through the ship's corridors like ghosts. They used the ship's own systems against the invaders, turning environmental controls into weapons, activating security measures the hunters did not understand. Marine Sergeant Jackson crawled through the ventilation system, following the sound of hunter movement. Below him, alien creatures prepared an ambush for the human rescue teams. Jackson dropped 3 grenades through the vent grates and moved on before they exploded. This was human warfare in its purest form. No honor, no fair play, no mercy for those who threatened their people. The Marines had learned their craft on a world where hesitation meant death, and second place meant extinction. In space, Admiral Kane watched the tactical display as his fleet formed a perfect sphere around the battle zone. The Galactic Council ships hovered at a safe distance, their commanders trying to understand what they were witnessing. Sir, we're detecting more Void Hunter ships approaching, reported his tactical officer. Long-range sensors show at least 50 vessels. Kane smiled coldly. Good, let them come. Signal the fleet to prepare trap formation Delta. Sir, that formation has never been tested in actual combat. Then today we test it. If it works, we live. If it doesn't, we die fighting. Either way, no hunter leaves the system alive. The approaching hunter fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, expecting to find their fellows finishing off easy prey. Instead, they found debris and human ships arranged in a formation that defied everything they knew about space combat. The humans had not formed battle lines or defensive positions. Instead, their ships were scattered throughout the solar system in what appeared to be random positions. It looked like chaos, but it was actually a carefully planned trap. As the hunter fleet moved toward the New Horizon, They found themselves passing through fields of hidden mines, remote weapon platforms, and automated drones. The humans had turned the entire star system into a killing ground. "Spring the trap," Kane ordered. What followed was less a battle than a massacre. The scattered human ships suddenly coordinated their fire, creating crossfire zones that no hunter vessel could escape. Ships that seemed isolated and vulnerable revealed themselves to be part of a vast network of mutual support. The hunters tried to retreat, but human vessels appeared behind them, cutting off escape routes. They tried to scatter, but found themselves herded into predetermined kill zones where concentrated firepower waited. Admiral Taylor of the Council fleet watched in growing horror as 50 Void Hunter ships were systematically destroyed in less than an hour. "How are they doing this?" he whispered. His tactical officer studied the displays with amazement. "Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're fighting like pack hunters." That was exactly what they were doing. Humans had evolved as pursuit predators, creatures that hunted in coordinated groups to bring down prey larger than themselves. Now they applied those same instincts to space warfare. On the new horizon, Colonel Santos reached the cargo bay where the main hunter hive had established itself. The massive space was filled with biomechanical structures that pulsed with alien life. At the center, human prisoners hung in cocoons, slowly being converted into more hunters. "Demo charges on the support pillars," Santos ordered. "We're bringing this whole section down." "Ma'am, the prisoners are already dead," Santos said grimly. "What's in those cocoons isn't human anymore. The kindest thing we can do is end their suffering." The charges detonated with controlled precision, bringing down the entire cargo bay. It was a hard choice, but humans had learned to make hard choices. On their world, mercy was often a luxury that survival could not afford. As the last hunter died aboard the New Horizon, Kane's fleet finished mopping up the remaining alien vessels. The trap had worked perfectly. Not a single hunter ship escaped, but Kane was already thinking ahead. He had read the hunter technology during the battle, analyzed their tactics and weaknesses. The galaxy thought this was over, but Kane knew better. "Signal Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them to begin mass production of hunter countermeasures." This was just the beginning. The Galactic Council ships finally approached, their commanders requesting permission to board the Retribution. Kane agreed, but on his terms. They would meet in his ship's war room, surrounded by displays showing the complete destruction of the hunter forces. Admiral Taylor and his delegation found themselves in a chamber designed for planning death and destruction. The walls showed tactical displays, weapon specifications, and deployment charts. This was not the bridge of an exploration vessel or diplomatic ship. This was the command center of a species that had perfected the art of war. "Admiral Kane," Taylor began formally, "the Council must protest your violation of first contact protocols and your attack on Council vessels." Kane looked at him with cold eyes. "Protest noted and ignored. What else? You cannot simply ignore galactic law. There are procedures, protocols. Your protocols left my people to die." Kane interrupted. "Your laws mean nothing to me. The only law I recognize is this. No one hurts humans and lives to tell about it." The Council delegation exchanged nervous glances. They had come expecting to deal with a primitive species that could be intimidated or bargained with. Instead, they faced something that challenged their entire understanding of civilization. "What do you want?" Taylor asked finally. Kane smiled, but it was the smile of a predator. "I want you to understand something, Admiral. You call us Deathworlders like it's an insult, but our world made us strong. It made us survivors. It made us warriors." He gestured to the tactical displays showing the destroyed hunter fleet. "This is what happens when you threaten our people. This is what your civilized species could never accomplish. We did it in one day." The truth hung in the air between them. The Galactic Council, with all their advanced technology and vast fleets, had never been able to stop the Void Hunters. Humans had done it as their first act on the galactic stage. "The galaxy is about to change," Kane continued, "and you can either adapt to that change or be swept aside by it." Outside the viewport, human ships continued their patrol routes, their weapons ready for the next threat. The Deathworlders had announced themselves to the galaxy and everyone was listening. The meeting aboard the Retribution would change the course of galactic history. Admiral Kane sat across from the Council delegation in the ship's war room, still wearing his battle-stained uniform. Around them, the displays showed the debris field where the Void Hunter fleet had died. "You call us primitive," Kane began, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "But when your own people were threatened, where were your fleets? You have the luxury of calling yourselves civilized because you've never faced true extinction." Admiral Taylor shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Admiral Kane, surely we can reach some understanding. The Council has protocols." "Your protocols are worthless," Kane interrupted. "They didn't save the Kethra colony when the hunters found them. They didn't stop the massacre on Veltar Prime. They didn't help my people when we called for aid." High Counselor Vashati leaned forward. "What do you want from us, Admiral?" Kane stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at his fleet. 3,000 human ships maintained perfect formation, their weapon systems still hot from battle. "I want you to understand that the galaxy has new players now. We don't ask for permission to protect our people. We don't wait for committee votes when lives are at stake. You cannot simply ignore galactic law," protested Counselor Thexmar. Kane turned back to face them. "Watch me." Over the following weeks, human actions spoke louder than any words. The Earth Defense Force did not withdraw its ships or return to human space. Instead, they expanded their patrol routes, establishing protective zones around any world willing to accept Earth's protection. The response was immediate and surprising. The first to request human protection was the Velkari Consortium, a group of mining worlds that had lost 3 colonies to pirate raids in the past year. The Galactic Council had offered sympathy and trade sanctions. The humans offered something different. Captain Sarah Chen, recently promoted after her heroic actions on the New Horizon, led a small fleet to the Velkari system. When pirates attacked the mining station on Velkari 7, they found human destroyers waiting for them. The battle lasted less than 20 minutes. The pirates, used to facing lightly armed civilian ships, discovered that human vessels were designed for war. When the smoke cleared, the pirate fleet was gone and Velkari 7 was safe. News of the victory spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. Within days, 12 more species requested human protection, not membership in some grand alliance or complex trade agreements. They wanted the simple promise that Earth would come if they called. Commander Morrison, recovered from his ordeal aboard the New Horizon, found himself in charge of humanity's first joint military academy. Located on Kepler Station in neutral space, the academy accepted students from any species willing to learn human military doctrine. The first class was small, just 50 beings from 6 different worlds. They came expecting to learn about advanced human technology. Instead, they learned something far more valuable: how to think like predators. "Your enemies expect you to fight fair," Morrison told his mixed class of aliens. "They expect honor, rules, predictable tactics. Give them chaos instead. Give them nightmares. Make them afraid to sleep, because they don't know where you'll strike next." The curriculum was unlike anything taught in galactic military schools. Students learned urban warfare in mock cities. They practiced guerrilla tactics in simulated jungles. They studied the art of psychological warfare and the science of breaking enemy morale. Most importantly, they learned the human concept of acceptable losses. While galactic civilizations avoided casualties at all costs, humans understood that sometimes sacrifice was necessary for victory. It was a hard lesson, but one that saved lives in the long run. The Galactic Council watched these developments with growing alarm. Traditional alliances began to shift as smaller worlds chose human protection over Council membership. The ancient balance of power was crumbling. Ambassador Zexai was the first Council member to visit the Human Academy. He arrived expecting to find a brutal training camp for barbarians. Instead, he discovered something that challenged everything he thought he knew about warfare. "They're not teaching them to be killers," he reported back to the Council. "They're teaching them to survive, to protect their people no matter the cost, to never give up, even when defeat seems certain." The Academy's most successful graduate was Lieutenant Kexalani of the Harmony Collective, a species known for their peaceful nature. Under human training, she learned to channel her people's protective instincts into military effectiveness. When raiders attacked a Harmony colony, Kexlani's small defense force used human tactics to defeat an enemy fleet 10 times their size. But the real test of humanity's new role came 6 months after the Battle of New Horizon. Long-range sensors detected something that made even Admiral Kane's blood run cold: a massive Void Hunter fleet, larger than anything previously seen, heading toward the galactic core. The Council's response was predictable. They prepared to evacuate threatened worlds and hoped the hunters would pass by. It was the same strategy that had failed for 1,000 years. Kane's response was different. He sent a message to every world in the galaxy, broadcast on all frequencies. The hunters are coming. Earth stands ready to fight. Any world that wants our protection, call us. Any species that wants to join the fight, we welcome you. The response overwhelmed human communication systems. Hundreds of worlds called for aid. Dozens of species offered to join the human fleet. For the first time in galactic history, someone was offering to fight the hunters instead of running from them. The final confrontation came at the edge of Council space, in a system called Haven's Gate. The Void Hunter fleet was massive, over 500 ships carrying death to entire worlds. Facing them was the largest military force ever assembled. Human vessels from Earth and the colonies, allied ships from 40 different species, and volunteers from across the galaxy. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the enemy fleet approach. Beside him stood officers from a dozen different worlds, all united under human command. It was a sight that would have been impossible just months before. "Signal the fleet," Kane ordered. "All ships, all species, all warriors who stand with us today. We fight not for territory or resources, but for the right to exist free from fear. We fight for every child who should grow up safe. We fight for every world that deserves to see tomorrow." The battle that followed became legend. Human tactics combined with alien technology. Council discipline merged with human creativity. Species that had been enemies for centuries fought side by side against a common threat. When the Hunter fleet finally broke and fled, they left behind something new in the galaxy. A coalition of worlds united not by politics or trade, but by the simple understanding that some things were worth fighting for. In the aftermath, Ambassador HFY found himself aboard the Retribution once again. This time, he brought a different message. "Admiral Kane," he said, "the Council has been discussing recent events. We have a proposal." Kane listened as HFY explained. The Council wanted to establish a new organization, a joint defense force that combined Council resources with human leadership. They were offering Kane command of the largest military force in galactic history. Kane was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the mixed fleet of human and alien ships. Finally he spoke. "I'll consider it, Ambassador. But understand this, my people have a saying. We don't leave anyone behind. If I take this command, that principle applies to every world, every species, every being under our protection. No exceptions," HFY nodded. "I believe the galaxy is ready for that kind of leadership, Admiral." As the human fleet prepared to return home, they carried with them something that had been missing from the galaxy for too long: hope. The Deathworlders had not conquered the galaxy through superior technology or overwhelming force. They had conquered it through something far more powerful: the absolute refusal to abandon those who needed protection. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps for the first time in 1,000 years, that was exactly what it needed.